Every time I visit central Madhya Pradesh, I like to make a tour by Khajuraho. I like to visit the 64 Yogini temple. Often I meet here people sitting, meditating, enjoying the sunset. Nobody is unaware of the special energy of this enigmatic place. Because of its simplicity, often people say that it's one of the first temples of Khajuraho. But the style of the sculptures that were found here indicate more that it was around the 10th century, probably contemporaneous to the one of the Jain temples that has an inscription. Some scholars say that the main buildings at Khajuraho were probably built from the 9th to the 12th century. What is important to notice is the contrast between the Yogini temple and the other temples. People tend to say that the chandels were tantrics, and probably they were, but not because of the erotic sculptures, but because of the Yogini temples that they built all around their territory. This proliferation of erotic sculptures in Khajuraho maybe was a simple continuation of the ancient ideas to attract fertility when they were depicting couples in amorous exchanges. As the architecture in Khajuraho was so amazing, the aesthetic so beautiful, and everything wanted to be over the top, probably the idea of carving orgies were also a motivation to do over the top also in this aspect. Devangana Desai, in her book Erotic Sculptures of India, pointed out that maybe it was also some codified messages, like for instance, we can see a monk of another sect having oral sex just by the way to indicate that some monks from other sects were doing practices not according to their status of monk. The Yogini temple of Khajuraho, as the other Yogini temples around India, are sober in the outside, and probably the practices were really tantric practices of transformation. There are differences how to attain the state of non-duality. Through the Brahminical path, the practitioner is supposed to make abstraction of the senses, to do penance, fasting, etc. In the Tantric path, in the Yogini path, the senses probably were used in order to refine them until the degree that one can transcend it, and maybe the cities were used for that. Even though the temple of Khajuraho is not far from the other group of temples, normally the Yogini temples were built in faraway places. Also, another difference of the Yogini temple of Khajuraho with the other Yogini temples is that this one is rectangular instead of round. There are few Yogini temples that they were rectangular, like the one in Rikyan, also in Madhya Pradesh, in the south part of the Yamuna River. Here we see the slabs that they were found in this place. This site of Rikyan, where these sculptures were found, is quite far away and is near some caves, and one can see a lot of stones like if it was a religious site. One of the common points among the Yogini temples is that all of them are open to the sky, without roof, but with niches that they were protected, where the Yoginis, the sculpture of the Yoginis, used to be, or they still are in the temples in Orissa and in Beragat in Madhya Pradesh. We know that the Chandels were devoted to the Yoginis because we found most of the Yogini temples were in their kingdom in central India. If the Chandels were looking to gain powers in war and to have more land through the cities, or if the patrons of the temples were looking for the state of non-duality, that we don't know. As we find no inscription, it is difficult to know who constructed the temple, if they were the kings or the queens or the feudal lords. We don't know. It is interesting to point out that it was found outside the temple a sculpture of Shiva Bhairava that is now in very close to the main group of temples and painted in red. This sculpture, as well as another of Ganesh now in the museum, have the same adorn of the little flower on the top that of the sculptures that were found in the temple. 3 sculptures were found in the grounds of this Yogini temple. 2 small of Brahmani and Maheshwari, and the larger of Mahisamardini, but with one inscription in the bottom that says Hinglaya. Hinglai is the goddess in the Shaktapita of Hinglai in Baluchistan, and is an amorphous goddess. So it's very interesting that this Mahishamardini was named with that name, and that it was also in the biggest niche in the temple. It means that it was the protector goddess of this temple of Yogini. The Yogini temple of Khajuraho, as all the other Yogini temples, are full of mysteries. Villagers continue to come to this Yogini temple and venerate now the empty space where Mahishamardini Hinglaya was the tutelary goddess.